que l'ensemble.
Hi everyone, very happy to be with you virtually. I was warned there would be a nice short jingle at the beginning. It was indeed nice and short, so that's cool. Yeah, very happy to talk a bit about this, of course, key topic about scaling up across borders. I think it's of course a key topic for all entrepreneurs, and especially maybe in Europe, where we know the market is more fragmented, and like each market is much more like, for instance, the US market. And so it is indeed quite a key topic to scale. Like if you want to really scale, you usually have to do it across borders. And so when you look at these companies, so you probably, for those of you who are French, you probably recognize the Next 40 and the French Tech 120. So basically the top 120 French startups or scale-ups, and all of these have been able to scale, and almost, I would say, 100% of them are like scaling, across borders. And so you see that it's of course key to be able to scale quite a lot. And so I'll try and be sharing a couple of thoughts of what we've been seeing at Qonto in the past few years. So really how to move, let's say, from being a startup to a scale up, and indeed doing that across borders. So what we've done is basically let's say with 3 steps, quite obvious, but I think it's good to have that in mind. Like first, we started Qonto in 2016 and launched in 2017. We actually just celebrated our 4th anniversary yesterday. And so the first step was really testing, launching, learning in France. That was like, let's say, the first 2 to 3 years, 2016 to 2018. Then the second step was replicating the French success, or the French early success, let's say, in Europe. And we did that in 3 other markets. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And last step, which we are actually in right now, is really about consolidating our positions, being even more local, even more present in our different markets, and in a way being more like kind of multi-markets rather than just let's say French with some other presence. And so this is actually a picture of my co-founder Steve and myself when we were like, even before we started Qonto. We started the first business together, and what happened is that when we were building that first business, we firsthand experienced how painful it was to deal with traditional banks. Opening an account was painful. Understanding the fees was painful. Just using the online banking was painful. And so when that first company got acquired, we actually thought, okay, let's now and try and solve a pain we had suffered or we had faced ourselves. And so that's how we came up with the idea behind Qonto. And so that's how we launched Qonto. And so we first started Qonto in 2016 in France. Actually launched in 2017. Spent about 9 months, a bit more than 9 months, working on the first version of the product. But very early on, we had in mind to create a European company, a European leader. And so with a few things, we kind of organized ourselves, even though at the time we're a very, very small team, very young company, for some future growth across borders. So a few concrete examples, but like first, the everything, all the internal communications, documents, and so on, everything was documented in English, and so of course it made it much easier later on to hire and to gather like a very international team. Also, we're very much able to work with partners and people that were obviously not French speakers. So it was much easier to get access to like some experts in our industry, across borders. Second example is that the product, the service, was available in both French and English from day one. So even though we were serving only French clients, so French SMEs, we offered the mobile apps, the web app, and also the customer support in both French and English. 90, I don't remember exactly, but 90, maybe 97, 98% of our clients had their app set, in French, which is quite obvious given that they were French clients. But the fact that we had planned to have those two languages, like we architectured the whole code base and everything to be able to scale further. And we already had in mind that, at some point we would add new languages because we would target new markets. And so by doing that early on, it was quite helpful. And because everything was also already in English, translating it or localizing it into German, Italian, Spanish later on was much easier because everyone speaks English, let's put it that way, and not everyone speaks French, obviously. And so it was very easy to use that English version as a pivot tool to get to other languages. So that was really like step one, was really focusing on France, French clients, but already having a few things that we're setting up that would make it much easier for the next steps. And of course, I think that's the main challenge, is really to be able at each step to keep on focusing on your first market, home market, but already have like a few quick wins or a few things that you implement that will make it much easier down the line. Our second step, very let's say simply put, was to replicate the French success in Europe. And so to do that, we basically did three things, or we kept on doing three things, or we strengthened, let's say, three things. First is like the team and the culture. Of course, a company, and especially a scale up, is mostly about people. We have like people and laptops, basically. We don't have much or maybe a trademark and domain names, but that's it. And so indeed the culture and the team is super key. Today we have 400 people on the team and 44 nationalities. So and of course that wasn't done overnight. So just by from the very beginning, we started hiring lots of people from lots of different countries, and obviously not only the 4 markets we're serving. And so this helped also with a kind of virtuous cycle. By having a more international team and culture, it was easier to adapt the company and the product to new markets, and also to hire German, Spanish, and Italian team members, because we were already seen as an international company, international culture. Like those people would come for interviews at the very beginning and would see that most things, not to say everything, but let's say like the vast majority of things were in English. Even like signs, like very concrete stuff, like signs in the office, like whatever, restrooms, or those kind of things. I mean, very, very simple stuff, but they were in English. So like non-French speakers would really feel at ease in the office, and it was very very important, of course, from day one. The second point is, of course, around identifying what are the right markets, or where are the right markets. In our case, we did it quite, let's say, rationally, having a good, let's say, consultant approach, saying, what are the big markets, where can we use our license, because Qonto is of course a regulated company, and so the license we have can be used across the whole of the European Union. And of course, we're already talking about Brexit at the time, so that's why we didn't launch in the UK, because we knew there could be some challenges in terms of regulation once or if Brexit was actually happening. And the second point is we chose like 3 markets that are big. So like Italy, Spain, and Germany are the 3 largest economies, with France are the 4 largest economies in the European Union. And that's also why we try to focus on, like the largest one where the opportunity was big. The second point around the payment system is that, of course, it makes it much easier for us to scale across these countries, because the technical stack that we need is the same. So like a SEPA payment is the same in Italy, in France, in Germany, in Spain. And same for other things like the cards payment, the cards networks, and so on. But this is even more obvious. And the third point, which is of course linked to that, is the same currency. So in these 4 markets, you only have like the euro is the currency. So like technically, all our accounts today are euro denominated accounts. So it makes it easier from a technical standpoint. It's also easier from a marketing standpoint because we only have one pricing. So all the prices are the same across our 4 markets. So it makes it much easier for lots of reasons. And so that was the approach, let's say, a bit top down, like, or outside in, let's say, before we entered into these markets. And once we had decided to move there, we basically localized 3 things: the product, the marketing, and customer success or service. Product, we went step by step, but one example is, of course, getting a local IBAN. So when you have like a bank account, the IBAN starts with 2 letters, which are the 2 letters for the country codes, or like for French IBANs, they start with FR. And we also we're now able to issue Italian, German, and Spanish IBANs, which is quite important for like psychological, but also for technical reasons. And so if you're a German SME, a German business, you're much more likely to open an account that is German, so starting with DE, because you believe it's like safer, it's more accepted. Like psychologically, there are lots of effects, and also technically, again, sometimes. And so this was one example. We're doing quite a few things like that, also in terms of partnerships, integrations. Another example is for instance, accounting software. One big value we're bringing to our clients is making their daily finance management easier, both on the purely, let's say, banking side, but also on bookkeeping, managing expense, spend, and so on. And so one important point is how we integrate with other software that the SMEs are using. And so, for instance, the top accounting software in France are like French. So, for instance, Cegid, and they're not present in the other markets. In Germany, the top accounting software is called Datev, and it's purely German. So, if you want to be like really strong in Germany, you need to integrate with those kind of local partners. And so we did that. Marketing is in terms of tone of voice, and of course like customer testimonials and so on. Like all that has to be localized if you want to be strong, and especially I would say on the SME segment, on the business segment. Maybe on consumer it's a bit less true. And last but not least is customer success or customer support. Obviously, having native speakers for each market. And so this was also something we planned a bit ahead, and then we were able to scale and ramp up the team size for this activity. But also we did it kind of step by step. Just to give you an example, in France, we started customer support like 9 to, I forgot the exact hours, but like maybe 9 to 7, 5 days a week. And then after a couple of months, we realized we had some demand for some customer support on Saturdays, and we were reaching a point that it made sense for us in terms of economies of scale to have some customer support on Saturdays. And then we even added Sundays, so now we have customer support 7 days a week in France. And we did something similar in the other markets. So starting with 5 days a week, then 6 days a week, and now we're reaching a point where we'll be doing 7 days a week on all our 4 markets. So of course we're also like replicating by replicating what we've done in France, but also learning from other markets. So maybe something that worked well in France that isn't working well in Germany, and so we'll learn from that for Italy or the other way around. We try to do, of course, continuous improvement and continuous learning and best practice sharing. And it's not always like the French thing that we're replicating in other markets. There is also like some cases when it's the other way around. And the last step is really something that we kind of just entered in a way, because we very recently, so in the last few weeks, we opened local offices in Milan, Barcelona, and Berlin. Before that, all our country teams, so like the Spanish team, the German team, and the Italian team, were based in Paris. We did that for lots of reasons, but the most important one was really to make sure we had one culture, one strong like link with all the teams, and we really wanted to avoid having an Italian team, like totally separated from the let's say the head office team and the central teams, and working a different, let's say, culture and direction than the central teams. And so after these, let's say, 18 months of working together, or maybe 24 months working together, part of that time was actually during the COVID and lockdown and so on. So we didn't spend the whole time together, but still quite a bit. And so now we believe it's the right time to go one step further. We have large enough teams that we can have like proper teams and proper offices in these markets. So it's not like just 2 or 3 people, a bit like randomly in Berlin, Barcelona, or Milan. It's a proper team that is able to have their own kind of also like energy, let's say, and is kind of large enough to be in a independent office. And of course, by being local and like physically present, we'll be able to be better at having local partnerships. So for instance, we had like we just announced a partnership with SumUp in Germany, but we'll do many more. And of course, was also some events. So now we can do lots of events online, as we're doing right now. But it's also important in some cases to do physical in-person events and meetings. And so we'll also be doing that more easily from our Berlin office in the case of Germany, and same of course for Milan and Barcelona. And on top of that, we'll be hiring talents that are not specifically linked to these markets, but in these offices. So we'll also be hiring product, tech, data, ops, marketing talent that will be based in Barcelona, Milan, and Berlin, but are not necessarily German, Italian, and Spanish working on that specific market. So that's more like probably for next year, but having those 4 offices working more like 4 campuses, and also for internal mobility kind of programs, rather than saying Germans should be in Berlin, Italians in Milan, and so on. So it's going to be really like more of a mix and a really kind of one team and one culture, but spread across 4 locations or 4 offices. And of course, on top of these 4 offices, we'll also have we already have, but we'll also have a part of the team that will be working from home. And so that's kind of our fifth office in a way. And I'll try and be brief because I think time is running. But in terms of challenges we faced, and I discussed quite a bit already, but it's really about like prioritizing, and so choosing what to do, what not to do. We're serving different markets. We're having different company types. For those of you who don't know very precisely Qonto, we serve a wide range of clients, because our clients are SMEs from 1 to, let's say, 250 employees. So of course these are different types of personas. We're also like offering both banking services and, let's say, more SaaS services. So we do quite a lot of things, and especially at the beginning. Now we have much larger team, but especially at the beginning, we really needed to like focus very heavily on like how can we prove that there is a market there? How can we get what's the MVP? And of course, when you're like talking about your MVP for French clients, you're not thinking too much of, what should we do for like the German clients to be ready in 2 or 3 years from now. So that's, I think, the challenge. But as I was mentioning earlier, we just did a few things to make it easier to scale later on. I'll skip that because I think I already mentioned quite a bit of that earlier. And yeah, but like local regulation, maybe just one point on that. Local regulation, even though we have one license, I was mentioning one license that we can passport, one payment system, which is the same SEPA, one currency, which is euro. Still, Europe is Europe. So it's supposed to be like, exactly the same, but it's not exactly the same because you still have a couple of laws or a couple of things that are different here and there. And so that's also something that was a bit challenging, but we've been able to address that as we were growing, and like step by step we kind of tackle these challenges one by one. And maybe to finish, how we see things for like the next few years. We want to be consolidating our positions in Europe, as we're discussing earlier, and then next steps is really to be strong, also very strong, let's say, outside of France. So getting more than 50% of our clients outside of France in the next few years, and when we are like pretty confident about our position in Germany, Italy, and Spain. So probably in 18-24 months from now, start also like rolling out to other markets. But right now we'll be focusing on these 4, which again are the 4 largest in the European Union, and there's still a lot to do for us there.
Oops. Hi, everyone. My name is Amrita Sarkar, and I'll be presenting just a few short slides after Alex's awesome presentation to bring home some of the points that he iterated during his presentation. So a short introduction from me. I'm currently part of a team at AWS that's called Strategic Startups, which helps the world's most strategic customers for AWS scale using not just AWS's technology, but all of the resources and assets that we have at Amazon to take their business forward. Previously, I was the venture capital business development manager for France, which meant that I helped French venture-backed companies scale on AWS. Prior to that, I was a venture capital investor myself, and I was on the boards of many companies in the IoT, digital health, and ag tech spaces across Europe and North America, many of which were either in the process of going abroad, scaling internationally, or strongly thinking about it. I've also been a Techstars mentor for the Paris and Oslo programs, and I'm a mathematician by training. So again, Alex did a great job of speaking about Qonto's excellent example and really bringing home many of the points, the challenges that entrepreneurs really face, because going international is a big decision. It's an expensive decision, and it's one where many startups, in spite of trying, don't really get it right. So here I've just tried to give you a quick framework for the types of things that you should be thinking about. Obviously, any of these topics is like a vast subject in itself, and you've got, firms that are specialized in just, a small part of any of these topics. So maybe, this framework will just let you think about these topics, in a certain way. Obviously, there's no right or wrong way to go about it, but, at a very minimum, you need to have thought through these things before embarking on your global expansion journey. So again, Alex mentioned this, before Qonto started thinking about expanding, they did this very, consulting style approach where they prioritized different markets, surveyed them, sized them, and really tried to quantify the opportunity. So here's where, you think about all of your options once you've made up your mind to expand. And then for each of the markets, you don't just need to think about the size of the market, but really think about how your existing products and services can respond to customer needs and preferences in that market. And if they don't respond to customer preferences in those markets, then you need to tweak your product or build a different product. And then a question related to this is, how do you finance your expansion? Have you raised enough to be able to do that? Or, what are the different steps for you to be able to bridge the gap between how much expansion will cost? So once this strategic planning step is over and you're in execution mode, operationally speaking, obviously HR is a big concern. How do you hire the first people, on the ground, the right talent? So Alex mentioned obviously native speakers of the language, but that's not the only thing you need. Depending on what you're doing, you need to find engineers, you need to find people who are going to be doing sales. In what order do you need to approach hiring? Obviously, finding office space, help with tax, legal, banking, accounting. These are obvious things, but they do take time to set up. So these are definitely things that you should be thinking about. Thirdly, the technology. And obviously, a lot of startups now are born in the cloud. So if you're looking at it, as we are from an AWS perspective, you'd be talking to a solutions architect about deploying in a new region. You'd be talking about security concerns, the regulatory environment. So imagine a US startup that's looking to move to Europe. They are going to have to be GDPR compliant. If you're a healthcare startup, healthcare data is subjected to all kinds of regulations in each local market. So you need to think about that. But even just, beyond the cloud, really, you need to be thinking about what kind of technology you're going to be using in the new environment. And if your existing technology on which your product is built is even adapted to the new market. So, you don't want to be in a situation where you go to a new place and then on the ground you discover that, this whole adaptation to the new market from a technology perspective is going to set you back by several months. And then the final piece is, of course, go to market. So, how are you going to sell your product in the new market? Obviously, co-selling motions, if you partner with another company that's able to help you do that, is one of the best ways to enter a new market. You can have partnerships with enterprises if you're a B2B company. This explicit part about introduction to local VCs is not just applicable for companies that are in immediate need of financing, but for most companies, expanding to a new geography is a precursor to massive growth, which will need finances down the line. Maybe you'll be needing to raise a massive Series C or Series D down the line. So who are the new VCs in this new geo that you need to know and who need to know you? And then finally, of course, support with marketing. So, B2B marketing is, of course, a whole vast field in itself, but who on the ground that you've partnered with can give you access to marketing resources to make you more visible? Or, are there events or trade shows that you need to go to become known to players in the local market? So, these are 4 aspects that you need to be thinking about. And of course, something softer is culture. Softer, but very, very important, which really underpins all of the, 4 different aspects that I mentioned before. So depending on the type of company you've built, so Alex mentioned, it's an English first culture. It sounds like a no-brainer, but imagine if you'd hired people who were suddenly unable to speak in English or speak in the local language wherever you were expanding to. That would be a major hindrance. But culture isn't just limited to language. It's at Amazon, we have our leadership principles that everybody has to abide by, and all of our hiring decisions are based on these LPs. And this has strongly contributed to the way that Amazon has been able to scale across the globe. So culture is something that's really the foundational building block of your future global expansion. And then finally, I wanted to leave you with maybe a couple of resources if you want to read up on what's been said and written about the global expansion journey for entrepreneurs. It's a lot of great material, but one of my very favorite pieces is about expanding to the US, and this was published by Index Ventures. It's really quite a lot of material, and they've segmented the market into both B2B and B2C players and covered how the expansion journey to the US for these EMEA startups was for each archetype. So, take a look. There's some very famous names in there like Colibra and others. So do take a look. The second article is a TechCrunch article about a startup's guide to international expansion. I think it's from back in 2015, so it's a little bit dated, but the advice in there still counts. And then the third is obviously your local AWS startup team. So do connect with your account managers, with your startup BD folks, as well as your solutions architects. If you're thinking about global expansion, they'll be able to help you, with some initial hand-holding and also point you to the right resources. So with that, my presentation is done, and we will now be taking questions from the audience.
Actually, we're going to have to run to our next session. Actually, unfortunately, yeah, we're out of time. But thank you both very much for coming and joining us. We've had a great amount of viewers sticking through the entire thing, and so that was obviously things that they were interested in and that they enjoyed. Thanks to both of you very much.
Thank you.
Que la famille.